Hello, Aquarius. This is your personal month forecast for November 2023. As we start out the month, I almost want to just do a check in and say, are you okay right now? Because you've probably gone through some pretty intense changes. I mean, we all have through October. We all experienced eclipse season and it was intense for all of us. But I do think, were one of the signs that was hit more than perhaps, the others, more than most of the other signs. So, yeah, are you all right? How have you adapted to these changes? Because there probably have been some pretty profound changes for you. I've got good news and bad news. So the good news is the intensity will be lessening as we get into November. Okay. The bad news, though, I mean, it's not necessarily bad news. It depends on how you look at it, but there is still some intensity there. So in other words, the beginning of November, it's still going to be intense for you, just not maybe as intense as much of October was. Does that make sense? And let's talk about this intensity. So basically, the main thing, the kind of elephant in the room, so to speak, is Sun, Mercury, and Mars all in Scorpio. They've all been in your 10th house, which is very powerful, right? You may have had a lot of activity and focus on your career, your reputation, whatever your role is in society. That's where the focus is. That's where the drive and ambition is with Mars there. That's where the learning and communication is with Mercury. That's where the general focus and energy is with the Sun there, right? So that's very powerful. It's not all bad by any means. However, these planets make a square aspect. They're squaring whatever placements you have in Aquarius. So squares are contentious. This has been a theme that was applying probably for much of October, as well as we're going into November. It just kind of specifically depends on where your placements are in Aquarius, but generally, wherever they are, there are these, squares to the Scorpio planet. So basically, lots of tension, need for change, need for adaptation. And I wanted to mention really briefly that full moon lunar eclipse that happened at the end of October, on October 28th. It was at 5 degrees Taurus. It was opposing the sun at 5 degrees Scorpio. So both Scorpio and Taurus form squares to your sign, right? So they form kind of a contentious dynamic with you. So again, that's where you have this nature. The nature of the energy was volatile, chaotic. There was so much change, but that silver lining is, I really hope that you embrace this energy by, adapting and making some kind of change, maybe doing something new, initiating in some kind of way, because it's been a great time to do that. And if you haven't, even as we go into November, that's really what these energies are asking for you. If you feel that tension and restlessness and anxiety, you don't necessarily have to. It's just that they're asking you to make some kind of change, take some kind of action right now, okay? I know you enjoy some level of consistency. You are Aquarius, you are a fixed sign, but, you are also air, you're known for profound change at different times. So now is time, there's a need for change, okay? We may not always like change, but it is a necessary evil, and it's what's necessary for growth and evolution, which is what you are all about, right? So that's generally the focus here as we start the month. I did want to briefly mention Venus as well. Venus has been transiting through Virgo. That will change later this month, but it's still in Virgo as we start out November. Virgo is your 8th house, so Venus has been bringing some abundance and pleasure and desire in regard to your commitments, your obligations, your investments. I'm talking anything to do with bank accounts, credit cards, stocks, investments, debts, inheritances, all of that. You may have had some kind of growth, or Venus typically makes things a bit easier in that area for you. So let's see here. And yeah, that's generally the focus. So I want to get into some key dates for November and talk about, some major developments for you here. So the first one is for November 4th. This is where Saturn turns direct at 0 degrees Pisces. It almost went backward all the way back into your sign, and I'm glad that it didn't personally. I think you're probably glad it didn't. You already dealt with Saturn in your sign for about 2.5 years, from the very end of 2019 all the way to earlier this year. So, you've already had a lot of that really heavy energy the past few years. So I think, you kind of lucked out in a way that you haven't had to deal with more of that, if that makes sense. And I do want to say, yes, Saturn pushes us to grow and become more mature and responsible. So It is necessary, but at the same time, how much of that do you want to deal with? I mean, it depends. It's up to you. I don't know. It depends. It depends on what you want. But anyway, so Saturn didn't enter Aquarius. It's still in Pisces, and it's turning direct now. So it's coming back online. It's affecting us in a more literal, more direct, way. It's literally turning direct, right? So what does that mean for you? So, well, first of all, for all of us, Saturn is bringing more of that, Saturnian energy. It's very heavy. It's asking us all to be more mature in one way or another. This is the energy of challenges and delays and increased responsibility. A lot of fun stuff, right? For you, this is in your second house. Okay, so second house has to do with how are you supporting yourself? How are you meeting your basic needs in a substantial, kind of reliable way, right? This has to do with income as well as expenditures as well. So in all of these areas, Saturn is asking you to be a bit more, mature, responsible. Again, it could be very heavy. There may be challenges or delays financially moving forward, but this doesn't have to be all bad. Saturn will reward you. It rewards all of us if we are mature and responsible and take ownership of ourselves, basically. So, are you being financially responsible? I hate to nag you. I'm not trying to nag you at all, but this is what Saturn does for us. This is, I'm basically just translating, so don't shoot the messenger, right? Are you being financially responsible? Are you spending money in the best way? And it may have to do with, a need to make more money and spend less money. I know we're all probably a little bit stressed about money right now, right? It could be that, but it may not be that simple, Maybe it could be something else. Maybe you're working too much and you're not investing, in yourself. This isn't just about money either. It's about, other resources like your time and your energy. So, maybe you've been working too much and you actually need to treat yourself right now. That could be the lesson here with Saturn. But whatever it is, what it is. You know what's right for you. Saturn energy is difficult. It is challenging, but it's fair and it's straightforward, right? So if you're saying, my problem is I need to treat myself more, use common sense, right? Use common sense. It's straightforward. It's cut and dry with Saturn, right? So yeah, that's generally the focus going forward. Yes, that is kind of a bummer, maybe, but it doesn't have to be. You may actually experience increased abundance from this, but only if you work for it. That's the way Saturn works. Okay, so a lot of fun stuff, I know, but that's just how it is. Jumping forward to November 8th, this is the day where Venus leaves Virgo and enters Libra. I think this is exciting for you personally. Yes, it's been pretty cool having Venus in your 8th house, kind of lighting up, those finances and agreements, the bank account stuff, any kind of like shared resources or agreements with roommates and things like that. Venus has been bringing abundance there, so that's been pretty cool. But now with Venus entering Libra, this is your 9th house, so that's basically indicating that now you're more desiring and finding pleasurable things that are a bit deeper in nature. You're wanting to, go back to like higher learning and asking the bigger questions right now. That's just what you're finding pleasurable going forward from November 8th with Venus in that area. Also on a more general level, as Venus enters Libra and transits through Libra for the rest of the month, as well as December, Venus will be trining whatever placements you have in Aquarius. So this is easy. Trines are easy. Trines are fun. And especially coming from Venus, Venus is potentially the easiest planet to work with, right? Venus makes things pleasurable and desirable. It tends to make us more attractive, and it also tends to make us or allow us or support us in finding what we find attractive as well. So with Venus in your fellow air sign of Libra, Venus it's supporting you in kind of an easy way moving forward. It's supporting you in being attractive and getting what you want, basically. All right, so that's a lot of fun. Okay, and then going forward only 2 days to Friday, November 10th. This is the day where Mercury leaves Scorpio and enters Sagittarius. And I think this is exciting as well. I can't lie, I gotta be real with you. Like I said in the intro, it is very powerful having planets in Scorpio for you. It's your 10th house of career and reputation. So, these past several weeks with that big focus on Scorpio, that has been pretty cool. It's been, but it's just so intense though. It's so pressurized, and there were so many intense changes there for you. So as planets enter Sagittarius, Mercury's just the first one. Mercury, Mars, and the Sun have all been hanging out together. One by one, they will enter Sagittarius, and as they do so, you'll feel the pressure just kind of lighten a little bit. There's not so much of a intense focus on you and your reputation and your public life. Sagittarius for you, it's your 11th house, so it's still representing a very public part of your life, but it's more social in nature. It's more having to do with your connections, your networking, your community, things like that. And it just forms a much less intense aspect to Aquarius, to you basically. So in short, Mercury entering Sagittarius means a little bit less intensity moving forward, and more networking, more thinking, communicating, learning, in regard to whatever groups you are a part of. Are you a part of any kind of group, any kind of social group? I know a lot of you Aquariuses are kind of outcasts, and you say, oh, I'm going to do my own thing. I don't want to be with anyone else, but there's got to be some kind of group that you're a part of, even if it's like your workplace or even if it's online activity. How do you fit in with the group or your community, or how do you not fit in, in those areas? Mercury in your 11th house is going to be supporting you in kind of thinking about these things and maybe kind of tweaking and changing, making changes to these areas, and being busy in this area as well. Mercury usually connotates a certain level of busyness too. Jumping forward to Monday, November 13th, this is the day where we have a new moon at 20 degrees Scorpio. So we're not done with the Scorpio energy yet. Mercury's, showing that the focus is gradually shifting to Sagittarius, but we're not quite there yet. We still have this, in this case, Sun, Moon, and Mars all in Scorpio at this time. New moon, a new moon, just like it sounds like, it's a new beginning, right? But not in the sense where you are like dramatically launching some kind of project or taking some kind of huge action necessarily. It's more the energy of planting a seed. This is an excellent time for, reevaluating your intentions. I think it's probably always a good idea for us to maybe always be more aware of our intentions and what we want, but especially on a new moon. If you're gonna neglect your intentions, fine, but just at least check in with them on the new moon. That's all I'm suggesting. I'm not even asking, I'm suggesting it, if that makes sense. Specifically, again, Scorpio is your 10th house, so having a new moon in your 10th house, this indicates, how is your career and reputation? What are your intentions in that area? Is there anything that you would like to change about that part of your life? What are your goals there? Or is your intention merely just to maintain what you already have? These are the questions I suggest you maybe ask and maybe reevaluate your intentions with. A new moon is a great time to reevaluate any intention at all, or set any intention. But specifically for this one, it's targeting your career and reputation. So what are your intentions going forward? It's going to be over the following days and weeks that you see your intentions manifest, if that makes sense. So that's basically what I have to say for that new moon. Oh, actually, last thing about that, the new moon, it is at 20 degrees Scorpio. So do you have any placements around 20 degrees Aquarius? If you do, this will be particularly intense for you because this new moon is squaring your Aquarius placements. All right. Even if you have placements as much as like 10 degrees away from 20 degrees Scorpio, you're gonna feel that square energy, so that volatility, that change, that intensity. It may be a bit reminiscent of themes and patterns that really were affecting you in a much stronger way in October. We still have a lot of that intensity here to some degree, but like I said, it is gradually fading. This is kind of the last flare up of Scorpio energy before we gradually move into Sagittarius season. Speaking of moving into Sagittarius season, Wednesday, November 22nd is the day where Sun leaves Scorpio and enters Sagittarius. So boom, Sagittarius season. Sagittarius is kind of like, I almost want to call it like a sibling sign to you. Sagittarius has a lot in common with Aquarius. You guys are kind of buddies on some level. So in other words, to put it in a more maybe professional way, Sagittarius is an energy that you blend with fairly readily, right? It is your 11th house. So again, now having Mercury as well as the Sun in Sagittarius, which is your 11th house, you're focusing a lot more on networking, communication. How do I fit in with a group and things like that. Maybe it's about forming stronger partnerships and connections with your, network, or maybe it's just about, otherwise changing that relationship or dynamic. But that's generally where the focus is. It's still very much a focus on that public part of your life. The difference is that it's less about you, which honestly, I think that's a good thing. It's a little bit less intense for you moving forward. Okay, and then jumping ahead to November 24th, this is the day where Mars is the last of these three beings. I almost want to call them three characters. It's the last of these three characters to leave Scorpio and enter Sagittarius. So again, now the focus has pretty much completely shifted to that the 11th house. Sorry about that. 11th house group networking, online activities, etc., etc. That's the focus. You'll feel that pressure lighten a little bit. Mars could bring a little bit of tension or competitiveness with your networking, with your groups, but it can also bring you more drive, more ambition, more courage in that area as well. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. But generally speaking, I do think this is nice for you. It indicates you've experienced a lot of trials and tribulations, and these are, I'm picturing like waves. There were intense waves, like not tsunamis, maybe tsunamis though, in October and much of November, and now they're finally dissipating. Like they're finally more like kind of just gentle rolling waves rather than crazy. You probably think I'm crazy, but anyway, so I do think that's good for you. It's going to be a little bit easier going forward. It's going to just feel like you have a weight kind of lifted off your shoulders, especially at this point. If you think about what you're experiencing at the beginning of the month and how different it was even just a few weeks ago, I think you'll be pretty amazed by how vastly different the energy is by now. Lastly, for this forecast, I want to talk about Monday, November 27th. Excuse me. There is a full moon in Gemini. This is exciting for you. The full moon is at 4 degrees Gemini. It's opposing the sun at 4 degrees Sagittarius. I feel like these are buddy signs to Aquarius. These are both signs that you work with very readily. So again, in other words, this full moon in Gemini, it's in your sibling sign, your fellow air sign. You handle air energy well because you are air energy. This full moon is supporting what you already are. So in other words, you are in your element for this full moon. I think full moons in general, you probably handle well, I would think, because they are about culmination. They're kind of wild and radical, and you are in a way about culmination. You are wild and radical in your own way. So a full moon in Gemini, I think this is something that could be a lot of fun for you. Yes, it could be chaotic. This could bring about some intense change or activity. Full moons, you kind of get a full range of, the good, the bad, etc. But, they can be very emotional. But for you, generally speaking, of course, I have to be very careful of what I say. But this full moon it's trining whatever placements you have in Aquarius, especially if you have any placements around 4 degrees Aquarius. Those will be making an exact trine to this full moon. So this looks like a lot of fun. It looks easy. More specifically, excuse me, this full moon it's affecting your 5th, 11th house axis. So this has to do with what is the nature of the dynamic of your own self-expression and pride, and how it fits in or doesn't fit in with the larger group. Can you be a part of a group in a dynamic where you are not only not sacrificing part of yourself to be in the group, but being in the group actually empowers and supports your own autonomy? Boom, mind blown, right? And to some extent, this is a major theme that you always deal with. This is what Aquarius deals with to a large extent their whole lives. But this full moon in particular is bringing about that theme, reevaluating those relationships to the group and networking. How can I honor the group and my obligations to the group, as well as honor my own autonomy and individuality and self-expression and pride, right? That is the nature of the game. There may have to be compromise there, But again, ideally, we want to be part of groups that empower our individuality, and we want our individuality to empower the group as well. Okay. But that's all I have for you. I just want to take into account, just how dramatically different the chart is by the end of the month compared to the beginning. The beginning was so intense. There was so much, yin energy, so heavy with Scorpio, as well as a little bit of Virgo. And by the end, it's completely dominated by Sagittarius, and Venus has entered Libra. So I do think this is going to become much easier for you as we go throughout the month, and these energies shift back to a more yang focus. This is now party energy. It's holiday energy in much of the West. This is celebrations. It's parties, and you tend to do pretty well with that type of energy, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Sagittarius and Libra in particular, they're both yang energy. They're both intellectual, like you. So you're more in your elements at the end of the month. Excuse me. Okay, so have a great month. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you later.